Hey, welcome to my channel, or welcome back if you're a subscriber. Today's topic is going to be very interesting, and hopefully it's going to be part of a series of spells that I want to present to you. And I really haven't seen a lot of this shared before. And it's a bit of a new exploration for myself as well. So often I find that people that come to my various videos on using, the power of the mind to find a new home or get over a broken heart or to change, help to change someone's self-destructive habits with many spells. Historically, it's always about controlling someone else or controlling something else. But what about if we took that idea and focused it on ourselves? What if we focused on changing or healing or altering our own behaviors or our own, where we need healing and growth? Don't you think that'd be a lot more powerful than, projecting or focusing all of that energy outside of ourselves, trying to control things and people? And then I always warn you in my videos that that can also be come along with some bad karma, depending what your motives are. And it can also lead in the long term to some really disappointing long-term effects when you're trying to bend the will of other people. So that being said, a couple of weeks ago, I was putting in my tomato garden. And they say they like to categorize, there's different types of witches, and one of those witches is a garden witch. Garden witches for centuries have been notorious healers. They worked with herbs and were connected to the earth. And that tends to be one of my directions, one of my passions. So I was thinking, I think it's time for me to grow, and it's time for me to heal. It's time for me to change, not the world around me, not my spouse, not my friends, because it's just the world's become exhausting in that way. Exhausting. We're always being bombarded with all of these things that consistently make us feel powerless. So the only way you can really feel centered and powerful is if, that assurance is coming from inside. That old grounding thing. But I think grounding, just saying to ground yourself, is a little too basic. If it was easy as just running around barefoot or doing a meditation and finding your center, the world would be a calm, logical place, right? So my friend was trying to help me put in something like 70 tomato plants and different squash, and I started everything from seeds, so I had literally over 1,000 different starts, many which I gave away just for that, energy, that karma. And I thought, this is a great opportunity. I will do a spell on myself. I'll do a growth spell, a growth and healing spell. So instead of throwing away my DNA, my toenail clippings and fingernails and beard hair, I had kept it. I kept it for a couple months and just kind of compiled it in a safe, sacred place. I took that and combined it with some sacred objects. And this is where people always ask me for hyper details. And this is where it's more important not to follow the recipe, but to get creative and to follow what you connect to, because that's where the real energy is. That's where the real magic and power is, not following other people and following instructions to a T. Those instructions are just to guide you on the basics, and then you're supposed to get creative. And I always say, the better the results come with the greater effort, because, of course, energetically, if you make a cake and you just buy a box cake from the store, you're going to have a so-so, you're going to have a so-so cake. If you make that cake from scratch with organic cocoa and lots of love and your grandmother's secret ingredient, you're going to have a phenomenal cake. And it's the same thing with when you're doing spell work. So I dug my hole and I called to the spirits. And I love the Aboriginals' idea of direction. The Aboriginals, the native people of Australia, are one of the most ancient tribal people in the world, and many people don't know this. And coming from a Native American background, my ancestors and many witches call to the four winds, or the four directions, north, south, east, and west. It's pretty basic. But the Aboriginals call to the seven directions. The seven directions. Can you guess what the seven directions are? Okay, we've got north, we got south, east, west, up, down, and the most important direction, the seventh direction, within. So I dug my hole and I had my bodily extension, my fingernail clippings, toenail clippings, beard hair, however intense you want to get with that. And I wrote on a piece of paper my intentions. And my intentions were for personal growth and happiness, that I could, start a new phase of my life that took me out of those old habits and those places that I was stuck mentally and emotionally. I become a bit antisocial and judgmental. And I think a lot of people became very afraid of each other, especially during the past 4 or 5 years in regards to just the crazy division of American society through politics and then COVID. And then I have a very unique lifestyle. I have a very strange and unique vantage point of the world because I chose a certain path as an artist and as a naturalist and a world traveler, etc. Not saying I'm better, not saying I'm worse, but a fact is a fact. So dug my hole, wrote down my intentions that I will grow, that I will heal, that I'll start understanding people instead of hoping that everyone was like me and the same and thought like me and agreed with me 100%. And I wrote down, that I would be more comfortable around people, and I would look for the happiness and the joy and the childlike qualities in everybody. And then I'd be strong enough to deal with my differences with people and accept myself more for my flaws and my fears and my anxieties. And a few other very personal things. And then I put that with my personal artifacts and with a protection stone, a little black tourmaline, whatever your favorite protection stone is, maybe some rose quartz for emotional healing, maybe a little amethyst or tiger's eye or turquoise. Really, there's no, whatever you connect to. And I wrapped that all up in a simple brown piece of paper. It kind of looked like a seed. And I browned that with some natural twine, some jute from the dollar store. And I put that in that hole. And then I planted a tomato on top of it. And the whole time, what I was imagining that my intentions, that this healing wouldn't happen quickly. Because that's the one thing also that people don't understand about manifestation, and they don't understand about spell work and healing, is that, I guess sometimes you could have immediate results, but the best results and the permanent results are the ones that happen slowly. They're the ones that you literally, like a plant. If a plant grew from a seed to a full-grown plant overnight, chances are it just wouldn't be able to sustain its weight. It wouldn't have the nutrition, the flavor, etc. So spiritually, or when we are on that journey of healing or changing, you have to be patient and calm and kind with yourself and other people. And so it's been really interesting to see, after I planted that tomato on top of my intentions and started watering it in, and about 3 or 4 weeks have come by, how this very comfortable, very gentle, very grounded, gradual change in spirit has come over me. I actually volunteered. I volunteered, and it was at this local music festival that they have very close to where I live, and it's a free event that's been going on for over 30 years. And this year it was to raise money to house the homeless. And yeah, I have these weird issues and ideas around the homeless, and it really wasn't the kind of music I listened to. And I could have thought of 1,000 reasons not to do it. I could have thought COVID. I could have thought all the terrible experiences I had before volunteering. And guess what? I put a lot of energy into it. I reached out to the man who's been making it happen for over 30 years and showed up that Friday morning. I was the first volunteer there. And initially, I went there with all my old shit, all my old judgments, all my protection, that weird, our protection mechanisms. But by the end of the day, I very effectively made a change and helped to manage and orchestrate a lot of other really well-intentioned people that were there for the same reason. And everyone, what I learned was these people I initially may want to judge, they all had their own special skill, and they all had their own intentions of why they were there. And we all worked together and we made it happen. And the crazy thing was, I was when I went to the music festival the next day, it was great because I really felt like part of it. I wasn't this outsider. I knew exactly what was happening, and I knew the integral parts of it and the integral people. And I continued to make friends and make magic. And there's some really crazy, just powerful experiences that I had opening myself up. And ultimately, I got an email yesterday that I was voted this year's #1 volunteer. And they wanted a photograph of me to post on their social media to say this was the guy that busted his ass and made things great. He put in great effort, and to be recognized for that, coming from this space of being really antisocial and having a lot of anxiety and being really uncertain about it, to that was so healing and so amazing. And so, consider doing a spell on yourself. Consider, the motivation, healing, growth, and instead of, just trying to control other people that aren't acting, loving you the way you want them to, perhaps focus that inward and go for self-love. And I know that sounds really cliche, but not just on a cheesy way, self-love. I mean, it's self-love and self-commitment and self-care. Unconditional love is something that we're supposed to have at birth. But the fact is, probably 98 to 99% of people out there cannot get this gift from their parents, from their creators, because they didn't have it. And there's so much generational trauma and abuse and neglect. And I think that's the norm. I no longer think that that is abnormal. I think that is the norm. And this lack of unconditional love, self-love at our core is what keeps us all from prosperity. and keeps us all from coming together to create that potential utopia where everyone has a place and everyone's cared for each other. And, you know, when our children and our country is experiencing weekly and bi-weekly now extreme violence, instead of fighting for our own selfish misconceived needs, we actually care enough to understand what is best for the whole of society, because we are part of that society. And I don't want to get too political, but you understand what I'm saying. You know, when is enough enough? And when do we start being change? When do we start being change? We start being change when we start to change ourselves. And that's why I think the idea of doing a self-healing, self-growth type of spell is a really powerful, not only a really powerful idea, but it also would go pair really well hand in hand with if you're trying to do any manifestation work. Because I mentor people for free, and I will tell you right now, 99% of the people that I try to help that ask for my help will never get through the first step, because I finally had to come up with a kind of like a system so that people wouldn't waste my time. So I knew that people were serious and were ready to do the work, because it isn't easy. Nothing good is easy. And this first step is a simple action of self-care, self-commitment, and self-love. And literally 99% of the people that I've tried to help won't get through, will not commit to themselves, will not follow through with the first simple step, which, you know, just shows me the core issue of humanity and society. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to do one of these self-growth, self-healing spells in my next video. So if you haven't subscribed, please do. But also be aware that I also do garden videos. Originally, and every once in a while I go off politically. I also showcase art. So I often can lose subscribers, which, you know, I'm not doing this for profit.